I had just signed the papers for the most beautiful house I had ever seen. It took me 65 years to scrape together every single dollar to buy that property, with a garden and 3 spacious bedrooms. My name is Emily Johnson. I am a widow and retired. But finally, I was the owner of something that was truly mine. The keys weighed in my hand like a promise kept after decades of working in the textile mill, saving every cent I could. Tomorrow I would move in. Tomorrow I would start my new life in that house that smelled of fresh paint and had enormous windows that let in all the light in the world. I had personally chosen every detail, from the furniture to the beige curtains that matched perfectly with the brown leather sofas I had bought on an installment plan. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. Until the phone rang that afternoon. It was Sarah, my only daughter. She had that tone of voice I knew all too well when she wanted to ask me for something. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something important regarding the new house. Come over for dinner tonight. There is something you need to know." Something in her tone made me feel a knot in my stomach. But she was my daughter. I had raised her alone after her father abandoned us when she was barely 8 years old. I had given her everything I could. Perhaps that is why I never learned to say no to her. I arrived at her house at 7 o'clock sharp as always. Sarah received me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. At the table, 3 place settings were laid out, but it was just the 2 of us. "Are we waiting for someone else?" I asked her as I sat down. "No, Mom. I just wanted you to know that tomorrow when you move in. You are not going to be alone in the house." I felt as if someone had poured ice water down my back. "What do you mean by that, Sarah?" She poured the coffee without looking directly at me. Her hands were trembling slightly, but her voice sounded determined, almost cold. My in-laws are going through a difficult situation. Linda and Robert lost their apartment, and, well, Jessica, my husband's sister, just got divorced and has nowhere to stay. My heart began to beat faster. And what does that have to do with me? They are going to live with you in the new house. It is all arranged. Robert will help you with the garden expenses, and Linda can cook for you. Jessica is very tidy. She will help you with the cleaning. I remained silent for a moment that felt eternal. My daughter's words floated in the air like invisible daggers stabbing into my chest. Sarah, I bought that house. With my money? With my life savings? Mom, don't be selfish. It is a 3-bedroom house. You have plenty of space. Selfish. The word left my mouth before I could stop it. I worked 40 years to buy that house. It is my refuge, my place of peace. Sarah slammed her cup down on the table. She looked at me with a coldness I had never seen in her eyes before. Your opinion does not matter, Mom. It is final. Tomorrow they arrive with me at 10 in the morning. Linda already has the keys I gave her yesterday. I stood up from the chair feeling as if the ground were moving beneath my feet. My own daughter, the girl to whom I had given everything, was taking away the only thing that was truly mine. You gave them keys to my house without asking me. It is for the best for everyone, Mom. You will see how you get used to it. I walked out of that house without saying another word. My legs were shaking as I walked to the bus stop. In the reflection of the bus window, I saw an older woman with eyes full of tears she did not want to shed. But somewhere deep in my chest, something more than sadness began to grow. It was rage. It was dignity trampled upon. It was the silent strength of someone who has been underestimated for too long. That night, I did not sleep. I sat in my old chair looking out the window, planning exactly what I would do the next day. By dawn, everything was clear. I got up with a determination I had not felt in years. It was not just anger that moved me. It was something much deeper. It was the self-respect I had lost somewhere along the way. At 6 in the morning, I was already dialing numbers on my phone. The first was to the moving company. "Good morning. This is Emily Johnson. I need to cancel the moving service scheduled for today. "Ma'am, but we already have the truck on the way. If you cancel now, you will have to pay a fine." "No problem. Take it out of my deposit." I knew I was losing money, but for the first time in a long time, I felt I was investing in my dignity. The second call was harder. It was to the furniture salesman where I had bought everything for the new house. "Mr. Rodriguez, this is Emily Johnson. I bought a complete living room and dining set last week. I need to return it all." "But ma'am, the furniture was already delivered to the address you gave us." "I know. I am heading there with the keys. You can pick everything up this morning. I will pay for the extra transport." "Are you sure?" "You will lose 30% of the value." "I am completely sure." My voice sounded firm, although inside I knew those furniture pieces represented months of overtime at the factory, hours standing in front of the sewing machine, stitches that made my fingers ache during the nights. The third call was to the cable television company. "I want to cancel the installation scheduled for today at the new address." "Any technical problem, ma'am?" "No, I simply do not need it anymore." The fourth was to the air conditioning technician who was coming to install the equipment I had bought on credit. "Mr. Smith, I am canceling today's installation. Mrs. Johnson. But the air conditioner is already paid for. We just need to install it. You can keep it. Consider it a bonus." One by one, I went on canceling every service. The internet, the landline, the gardening service I had hired to keep the garden I was so excited about beautiful, the bottled water company that was going to supply me. I even canceled the electrician who was coming to install extra lamps. Every call was like taking a blindfold off my eyes. I realized how many dreams I had deposited in that house, how many nights I had spent awake imagining every detail, every moment I would live there. By 7:30, I was done with all the cancellations. I made myself a strong coffee and sat down to review the house papers. All the documents were in my name. Every signature was mine. Every dollar invested came from my bank account. At 8 in the morning, I was ready. I put on my dark green dress, the one that made me feel elegant, and I left for my new house, my house that would no longer be my home. The bus ride took 40 minutes. During the whole trip, other passengers got on and off, each with their morning routines, their jobs, their own lives that seemed more orderly than mine. An older lady like me was carrying bags of vegetables from the market. I wondered if she also had children who made decisions for her. When I arrived, the workers from the furniture store were already there waiting. I opened the door for them and watched them load one by one all the furniture I had chosen with so much love. The brown sofa where I planned to read in the afternoons, the dining table where I imagined receiving visitors at Christmas, the king-size bed where I dreamed of sleeping peacefully after so many years of worries. "Are you sure you want us to take everything, ma'am?" asked the head of the movers, a burly man with a face that showed he understood nothing of what was happening. "Completely sure. It is just that. Did you not like something? We can exchange any piece for another." "No, everything was perfect. I simply do not need it here anymore." It was strange to see how the house was emptying out, but with every piece of furniture that left, I felt lighter, as if I were stripping myself of an illusion that was never really mine. The workers took the new refrigerator, the microwave, the washing machine, even the paintings I had bought to bring life to the walls. One of them asked me if they should also take the curtain rods. Yes, take everything that is not glued to the wall. When they finished, the house remained completely empty, only the white walls and the echo of my footsteps resonating in the empty rooms. I walked through every room one last time. The master bedroom where I had dreamed of having my own space, the guest room where I thought some relative would come to visit me, the third room that I had imagined as my little library, all empty, all echo. I sat on the dining room floor and took a sheet of paper and a pen out of my purse. It was the same pen with which I had signed the purchase contract just a week ago. I wrote a letter, short, but with every word chosen carefully. Sarah, Linda, Robert, and Jessica. This house was bought with the money from my 40 years of work, money I earned sewing from 5 in the morning until 8 at night, skipping meals to save every cent, money I gathered by denying myself small luxuries for decades to fulfill this dream. If you wanted a free house, you should have asked me before making the decision for me. The keys are on this letter. The house is yours now. Do what you want with it. But do not count on me to finance anyone else's dreams, with all the pain in my heart, but with a clear conscience. Emily. I left the keys on the letter, in the exact center of what had been the living room. The metallic sound of the keys against the floor resonated through the entire empty house, like a bell announcing the end of something. I walked out without looking back. I closed the front door and walked to the street where the taxi I had called was already waiting for me. Where to, ma'am? To the city center. To the Plaza Hotel. Do you have luggage? No, I only carry what I need. During the ride, I did not cry. I did not regret it. I only felt a strange peace, like when you finish cleaning a deep wound. It hurts, but you know it was necessary. At the hotel, I asked for a simple room. I just needed a place to think clearly about what I would do with the rest of my life. The receptionist, a young girl with a kind smile, looked at me with curiosity when I paid for a full week in cash. "Are you going to be on vacation in the city, ma'am?" "No, honey, I am starting a new life." Her eyes lit up with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Probably it was not common to see a woman of my age talking about starting over. How exciting. I hope you enjoy your stay. I went up to the room and sat by the window overlooking the main square. It was a modest but clean room, with a single bed, a small desk, and a view that calmed me. People walked hurriedly in the square, each with their own problems, their own dreams. I wondered how many of them had been betrayed by those they loved most. I opened the window to let in the fresh morning air. There was a bench under a large tree where an elderly man was feeding pigeons. He looked so serene, so at peace with himself. It had been years since I felt like that. At 9:45, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. "Mrs. Emily Johnson?" "Yes, this is she. This is David Miller. I am your neighbor from the new house." "Well, your next-door neighbor." My heart sped up a little. What would the neighbor want? "Good morning, Mr. David. How can I help you?" "Ma'am, excuse the bother, but something strange is happening at your house. A moving truck arrived about an hour ago, but instead of bringing things in, they are taking everything out." I smiled involuntarily. It was strange to feel that someone worried about me, even if it was a stranger. "Do not worry, Mr. David. Everything is under control." "Are you sure?" Because I also saw the furniture company taking away sofas and a large table, and now there is an appliance van. His voice sounded genuinely concerned. He was an older man. You could tell by his slow and polite tone. "Very kind of you to worry." "Yes, I authorized all of that." "Oh, good. It is just that yesterday I saw you so excited when you were checking the garden. I thought something bad had happened." "You saw me yesterday in the garden?" "Yes, ma'am. I was watering my plants when you arrived with a notebook writing things down. You looked so happy planning where to put the flowers. I got a lump in my throat. It was true. Yesterday afternoon I had gone to measure the garden, to imagine where I would put the rose bushes I wanted to plant. It had been one of the happiest moments of the last few weeks. Yes, I had many plans for that garden." "Had? You do not have them anymore?" There was an awkward silence. I did not know how to explain to a stranger what had happened. "The situation changed, Mr. David." "Well, Mrs. Emily, I do not meddle in other people's business. But if you need anything, I live alone in the house next door. I am a widower, too, and I know what it is to be alone at this stage of life." His words went straight to my heart. It had been a long time since anyone spoke to me with such warmth, without wanting anything in return. "Very kind, Mr. David, truly. By the way, ma'am, a van just arrived with 4 people. a very upset young woman, and 3 older people with suitcases. At 10:30, my phone rang again. This time it was Sarah. "Mom, what did you do? The house is completely empty." Her voice sounded hysterical, furious. But there was also something else. There was real panic in her tone. "Hello, Sarah. How did the move go? Do not be funny. Where is all the furniture? Where is the television? Linda and Robert are standing in an empty house with their suitcases. Oh, that. I returned it all. I was not going to need it. You are crazy. How can you do such a thing? Do you have any idea what it cost? Of course I know. I paid for it. Mom, you have to fix this right now. Robert already spent money on gas for the moving truck. Linda brought food to cook today. Sarah, I do not have to fix anything. You all decided for me. Now decide how to resolve this, too. This is ridiculous. You are so selfish." A bitter old woman. The words hurt more than I expected. It was my daughter speaking to me like that. The girl I had raised with so much love was now shouting at me as if I were her enemy. "Where are you? Come here immediately." I looked out the hotel window. The elderly man was still feeding the pigeons in the square. He looked calm, without rushing, without shouting on the phone. "I am not coming. Sarah, I already did my part. I bought the house. The rest is your problem. Mom, this cannot be happening." Linda is crying. She says she feels humiliated. Sarah, at any moment did you ask yourself how I felt? What do you mean? Did you ask yourself if I wanted to share my house? If I had worked 40 years to have permanent guests? If my dream was to turn into a free boarding house? Mom, do not exaggerate. It was only going to be temporary. How long? A month? A year? Until they got jobs? And if they did not get them, was I going to kick them out? There was a silence on the other end of the line. "This is not going to stay like this, Mom. You are right. It is not going to stay like this. Because now I am going to decide what to do with my life. And for the first time in many years, I am going to decide alone. Wait, do not hang up." But I had already hung up. I turned off the phone and put it in the nightstand drawer. Through the window, I saw a bus full of tourists arrive. They got off with cameras and maps, excited to discover the city. They laughed, took photos, pointed at historic buildings. I wondered when was the last time I had felt that excitement for something new. I decided to go down and walk around the square. I needed fresh air and movement after that call. The square was beautiful. It had large trees that gave shade, wrought iron benches painted green, and a fountain in the center where children ran around while their mothers watched them from the benches. I approached the elderly man feeding pigeons. He had completely white hair and wore a well-ironed cream-colored shirt. "Good morning," I said to him. "Good morning, ma'am. You like pigeons too?" Honestly, I had never stopped to observe them. They are very intelligent animals. Each has its personality. That gray one over there is very shy, and that white one with spots is the greediest of all. I watched him feed the birds with breadcrumbs he took from a paper bag. There was something very peaceful in his movements, very deliberate. "Do you come here every day?" "Every day since I retired. My wife died 5 years ago, and my daughter lives in another country. At first I came because I did not know what to do with so much free time. Now I come because the pigeons are waiting for me." "Do you not feel lonely?" "Sometimes. But I have learned that being alone is not the same as being lonely. When you are at peace with yourself, solitude can be very good company." His words resonated in my head like a bell. "Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Can I sit for a moment?" "Of course, ma'am." "What is your name?" "Emily. Emily Johnson. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Emily. I am David Miller." "David Miller, yes. Why? We know each other. You called me this morning. You are my neighbor." He stared at me with wide eyes. "Are you the lady of the new house? The one with the garden?" "Was. Not anymore." David stopped feeding the pigeons and looked at me attentively. "What happened, Mrs. Emily?" And for the first time since last night, I felt like telling someone the whole truth. I told David everything. From the moment I signed the house papers to Sarah's furious call that morning. He listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, his eyes reflecting an understanding I had not found in anyone for a long time. "Mrs. Emily, he told me when I finished my story, you did the right thing. Do you really believe that?" "Of course. I have 3 children, and since I became a widower, all 3 have had brilliant ideas about what I should do with my house, with my money, with my time. The oldest wants me to move to a nursing home so he can sell my house. The middle one wants me to lend him money for his business. And the youngest wants me to come live with her to babysit her children for free. And what do? I tell them no. At first they got angry. They stopped visiting me for months. But later they realized that their dad was not a fool they were going to manipulate easily. David was right. But it hurts so much to reach that realization. It is just that Sarah is my only daughter. I raised her alone after her father left, and for that very reason, Mrs. Emily, you gave her everything. Now she thinks she has a right to everything of yours." A pigeon approached my feet and looked at me expectantly. David gave me some crumbs. "Take it. This one is named Hope. She is the bravest of all." Feeding Hope calmed me down. There was something comforting in that small act of generosity without expectations. "David, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you learn to be alone without being lonely?" He stood thinking for a moment, looking toward the fountain where a young mom was chasing her small son. "I think I started to understand it when I stopped waiting for others to fill my life and started filling it myself. At first it was hard. I was used to my day revolving around my wife. When she died, I did not know what to do with myself. And what did you do? I started small. I got up one day and decided to learn to cook something other than fried eggs. Then I decided to fix broken things around the house myself instead of calling my children. Then I started going out for walks without a fixed destination. And when did you know you were okay? The day I realized I could spend a whole day without looking at the phone waiting for someone to call me. The day I got up excited about something I was going to do for myself. His words hit deep. It had been years since I got up excited about something that was just for me. David. Do you think I'm too old to start over? Mrs. Emily. My grandmother started learning piano at 70. She said she had been too busy raising children and grandchildren to do something for pure fun. She died at 85 playing a waltz. I smiled for the first time in days. Really? And you are 65. You have at least 20 years to learn piano. Painting, dancing, French cooking, whatever comes to your mind. I remained quiet for a moment, watching how Hope pecked the crumbs around my feet. David, can I tell you a secret? Sure. My whole adult life I dedicated to being the perfect mom for Sarah. I worked, cooked, cleaned, helped her with homework, went to school meetings. I never had time to ask myself what I liked. And now I realize I do not even know what my favorite color is. I always bought clothes thinking about what was practical, not what I liked. What color are you wearing today? I looked at my dark green dress. Green. Do you like it? Yes. It makes me feel elegant. Then that can be a good start to getting to know yourself. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Sarah again. This time I did not turn it off, but I did not answer either. I let it ring until it stopped. Was that your daughter? Yes. Are you going to answer her? Not yet. I need time to think. Time to... David nodded understandingly. Mrs. Emily, allow me to give you some advice. Please, do not make important decisions when you are angry, but do not take them when you are afraid either. Take them when you are calm. And how do I know when I am calm? When you can think about the problem without your chest hurting. I took a deep breath. My chest still hurt when I thought about Sarah. Then I am not ready yet. There is no rush, Mrs. Emily. Time is the only thing we really have. We stayed in silence feeding pigeons for almost an hour. It was a comfortable silence, no pressures, no expectations. It had been years since I experienced that feeling of peace. David, can I ask you something else? As many times as you want. Do you think I am a bad mother for having done what I did? David stopped handing out crumbs and looked me directly in the eyes. Mrs. Emily, is a good mother one who allows her child to trample on her? No. Is a good mother one who teaches her child that she can make decisions for another without consulting them? No. Is a good mother one who accepts anything to avoid conflicts? No. Then you were not a bad mother. You were a mother who finally decided to teach her daughter a very important lesson. What lesson? That actions have consequences, and that respect is not optional, not even among family. His words comforted me more than I had expected. Do you know what hurts the most, David? What? That when Sarah shouted at me on the phone. She did not sound sorry for having disrespected me. She sounded furious because her plan did not work. That hurts. I know. But it is also giving you very valuable information about who your daughter really is at this moment in her life. What do you mean? That perhaps the Sarah you raised, the sweet and grateful girl, got lost somewhere along the way. But that does not mean she cannot find herself again. And if she never finds herself, then you will have learned something painful but necessary, and you will be able to decide how to relate to her based on reality, not on your hopes. The phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Mrs. Emily Johnson? Yes, this is Linda. She was going to be your... This is very awkward. Linda sounded nervous, ashamed. Hello, Linda. Mrs. Emily, I wanted to apologize. I did not know that Sarah had not consulted you about us living with you. I truly did not know. No, ma'am. She told us that you had insisted on us coming to live with you because you felt very lonely, that you wanted company. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. She told you that? Yes, ma'am. That is why we accepted. We thought we were doing you a favor when we arrived this morning and saw the house empty. And then Sarah started screaming. We realized something was not right. Linda, where are you now? At the house, ma'am. We do not know what to do. Robert is trying to calm Sarah down, but she is beside herself. And Jessica? Well, Jessica says this is very uncomfortable and we should just leave. And what do you want to do? Mrs. Emily, we do not want to cause you problems. If you want us to leave, we will leave. We can look for another place. For the first time since yesterday, someone was talking to me with respect and consideration. Linda, can I ask you something? Sure, ma'am. Do you really need a place to live? Yes, ma'am. We lost our apartment because the owner is going to demolish it. We have a month to find something. But with the pension we receive, it is very difficult to get something decent. I understand. Mrs. Emily, what Sarah did was very wrong. You had the right to decide about your own house. David was watching me attentively. I could see in his eyes that he was realizing something important was happening in that conversation. Linda, will you let me think about it? Of course, ma'am. And again. I apologize for this misunderstanding. When I hung up, David asked me, "What are you going to do?" I do not know yet, but I think I am starting to understand something. What? That maybe the problem was not that they came to live with me. The problem was that no one asked me if I wanted to. David nodded slowly, as if he had been waiting for me to reach that conclusion. Mrs. Emily, there's a big difference between helping because one wants to and being forced to help. Exactly. If Linda and Robert really need help, and if they had asked me with respect, maybe I would have said yes, but Sarah decided for me, and that is what I cannot forgive. And what do you plan to do now? I stayed observing the pigeons. Hope had brought 2 others, and now all 3 were pecking near our feet. It was as if they had formed a small family around us. I think I am going to talk to Linda and Robert, but without Sarah present, seems sensible to me. David. Do you think I am foolish for considering helping them after everything that happened? No, Mrs. Emily. I think you are being wise. You are separating the people who acted with respect from the one who did not. That afternoon, I returned to the hotel and called Linda. Linda, it is Emily Johnson. Mrs. Emily, how are you? I am fine. Linda, could we talk? You. Robert and I? Without Sarah? Yes. Of course, ma'am. Where do you want to meet? Do you know Hope's Cafe downtown? Yes, ma'am. Can you be there at 5 in the afternoon? Of course. And Jessica? She can also come if she wants. I will ask her and confirm with you. An hour later, I arrived at the cafe. It was a small and cozy place, with wooden tables and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee floating in the air. Linda and Robert were already there, sitting at a table in the back. They looked nervous, but respectful. Linda was a woman of about 60, with gray hair tied in a simple bun and a pale yellow blouse. Robert seemed a few years older, with a white mustache and a well-ironed light blue shirt. Both stood up when they saw me arrive. Mrs. Emily, thank you very much for agreeing to talk to us, said Robert, extending his hand. Sit down, please. We settled at the table. The waitress approached and we ordered coffee for the three of us. Jessica is not coming. No, ma'am, replied Linda. She says this is very awkward and she prefers to look for another solution. I understand. Well, I wanted to talk to you to clarify some things. Of course, Mrs. Emily. First, I want you to know that I am not angry with you. I am angry with my daughter for the way she handled this entire situation. Linda and Robert exchanged a look of relief. Second, I want to understand exactly what Sarah told you and what your real situation is. Robert spoke up. Mrs. Emily, we lived in an apartment in the San Miguel neighborhood for 15 years. The building owner died and his heirs decided to sell the land to a developer. They gave us 3 months' notice to vacate, and you haven't been able to find another place. We have looked, ma'am, continued Linda, but with our retiree pension, most of the places we can afford are in very bad condition or in very dangerous neighborhoods. How much do you receive in pension, between the two of us? About $400 a month, replied Robert. It was a small amount. I understood why they had difficulties finding something decent. And how did you meet Sarah? She is our daughter-in-law, explained Linda. She has been married to our son Michael for 8 years. Michael agrees with you living in my house? Linda and Robert looked at each other uncomfortably. Well, Mrs. Emily, said Robert, Michael is working in another country. He left 6 months ago to look for better job opportunities. He knows what happened today. We sent him a message telling him, but with the time difference, he still hasn't answered us. The waitress brought our coffees. I took a sip while processing the information. Linda, Robert, I want to ask you a direct question. Did you really believe that I had insisted you come live with me? Linda lowered her gaze. At first, yes, ma'am. Sarah told us that you felt very lonely in that big house and that you had commented that you would like to have company. But when we arrived this morning and saw your face when you received Sarah's call, we realized something was not right, admitted Robert. What made you realize? The way Sarah was shouting at you on the phone, said Linda. A daughter doesn't shout like that at her mother unless she knows she is doing something wrong. I was surprised by her insight. And what do you plan to do now? Mrs. Emily, said Robert. We do not want to be a burden to anyone. If you prefer us to look for another place, we understand completely. But what would you do? Where would you go? We have some savings, explained Linda. We could rent a room in a boarding house for a month or two while we look for something more permanent. One room for both of you? Yes, ma'am. It is not ideal, but we have lived in worse conditions. I looked at both of them. They were humble people, educated, who found themselves in a difficult situation through no fault of their own. It was very different from the image I had made in my head of freeloaders who wanted to live for free. Linda. Robert. Can I make you a proposal? Of course, ma'am. How would you like if we try an arrangement for a month? They looked at each other surprised. What kind of arrangement, Mrs. Emily? You can stay in the house. I will pay for the basic necessary furniture. A bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a used refrigerator. Nothing fancy, but functional. Ma'am, we cannot accept that without paying you something, protested Robert. Let me finish. You would help me with certain things. Robert, you could maintain the garden and do minor repairs. Linda, if you like cooking, you could prepare food for me a few times a week. And where would you live? Asked Linda. I would stay in my hotel room for now. I need time to think about what I want to do with my life. But Mrs. Emily, said Robert, it is your house. You should live there. Robert, after what happened, that house no longer feels like my home. Maybe later, but not now. Linda had tears in her eyes. Mrs. Emily, why would you do this for us after everything that happened? Because you are treating me with respect. Because you are asking me instead of deciding for me. And because I believe we all deserve a second opportunity. And what about Sarah? Asked Robert. Sarah will have to learn that actions have consequences. If she wants to be part of this arrangement, she will have to apologize to me first, and she will have to demonstrate that she can respect me. Do you think she will? I do not know, but that is her decision. Linda extended her hand and touched mine on the table. Mrs. Emily, you are an angel. No, Linda, I am just a woman who is learning to set boundaries. When could we start? Tomorrow, if you want. I will take care of buying the basics and having them delivered. And how much would we pay you for rent? $100 a month to cover basic services, and you take care of the food. Robert and Linda looked at each other excitedly. Mrs. Emily, said Robert, that is less than what we paid in the previous apartment. I know, but I am not doing this for money. I am doing it because I believe it is the right thing. What do you need us to do? Keep the house clean and cared for. Respect me as the owner, and understand that this is a temporary arrangement while we all decide what we want to do long term. Perfect, ma'am, they said at the same time. There is one more condition. Which one? If Sarah appears at the house without having spoken to me first, do not let her in. This is my house, and I decide who can be there. Understood, said Robert firmly. And Jessica? Jessica decided to look for another place. She says she doesn't want to be in the middle of family problems, explained Linda. Better for everyone. We stayed talking for another hour. They told me about their lives, their previous jobs, their worries. They were good people who simply had bad luck. It was comforting to talk to people who treated me like a person with a right to an opinion about my own life. When we said goodbye, I felt something I had not felt in a long time, that I had made a decision for myself, based on what I considered right, without allowing others to decide for me. That night, while I was dining alone in the hotel room, my phone rang. It was Sarah. This time, I did answer. Hello, Sarah. Mom. Linda told me they are going to live in the house anyway. That is correct. But that is exactly what I had planned from the beginning. No, Sarah. What you had planned was to force me to accept guests without consulting me. What I decided is to help Linda and Robert because they asked me with respect. It is the same thing. It is not the same thing. And if you cannot see the difference, then we have a much bigger problem than I thought. Mom, I do not understand why you are being so dramatic, continued Sarah. In the end, we all win. Linda and Robert have a place to live. You have company, and I stay calm, knowing you are not alone. Her words confirmed to me that she really did not understand what she had done wrong. Sarah, do you hear what you are saying? What do you mean? You are talking as if I were an object that needs to be managed, as if my house were yours to dispose of, as if my feelings did not matter. Oh, Mom, do not exaggerate. I am not exaggerating. I am going to give you an example. How would you feel if I arrived at your house tomorrow and told you I decided 3 people are going to live with you without asking you? That is different. Why is it different? Because Because you are my mom. And by being your mom, I do not have a right to decide about my own life? There was a silence on the other end of the line. Mom, I just wanted to help. Sarah, if you really wanted to help, you would have asked me first. You would have said, Mom, Linda and Robert need a place to live. Would it be okay with you if they came to stay with you for a while? And then I would have been able to decide, and you would have said yes. Possibly. But we will never know because you did not give me the chance to choose. Sarah sighed. Okay, Mom. Maybe I should have asked you first. Not maybe Sarah. Definitely you should have asked me. I already told you that maybe I should have done it differently. What else do you want? Her tone remained defensive, as if she were doing me a favor by partially admitting her mistake. I want you to understand that what you did was wrong. Not maybe wrong. Wrong. My God, Mom, what do you want? That I kneel and ask for forgiveness? I want you to respect that I am an adult person capable of making my own decisions. I want you to understand that you cannot dispose of my life without consulting me. And yes, I want a sincere apology, not a half apology. This is ridiculous. For you, maybe. For me, it is very important. Mom, you know what? Do what you want. After all, you have always been very stubborn. And she hung up. I stayed looking at the phone for several minutes. It was incredible how Sarah had managed to turn me into the problem of the situation. According to her, I was dramatic, exaggerated, and stubborn. At no moment had she really assumed responsibility for her actions. That night, I could not sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, thinking about all the times Sarah had made decisions for me over the years. Small things that at the time I had let pass because it was easier or because she just wanted to help. The time she decided I needed to change doctors because mine was too old. The time she gave away my antique sewing machine because I didn't use it anymore without asking me. The time she canceled my newspaper subscription because the news only depressed me. I realized that the problem with the house had not been an isolated event. It was the culminating pattern of years of disrespect disguised as care. The next day, I got up early and went to buy used furniture. I found a store where they sold things in good condition at reasonable prices. I chose a simple double bed, a small dining table with 2 chairs, a refrigerator that worked well, and a modest but comfortable sofa. Is all this going to the same address? Asked the salesman. Yes, and I need it delivered this afternoon. You are furnishing a whole house. Something like that. Then I went to the supermarket and bought basic provisions: rice, beans, oil, salt, some canned goods, coffee, sugar. Enough so Linda and Robert could cook the first few days. At 3 p.m, I arrived at the house. Linda and Robert were waiting for me in the front garden, sitting on the porch with their 2 suitcases beside them. Mrs. Emily. We did not know if you would come, said Linda, rising quickly. I told you I would come, and here I am. What do we do with the keys? Asked Robert. Sarah took the ones she had, and we do not know if you want us to keep them. I have my set of keys. Later, I will give you copies. The delivery trucks arrived an hour later. It was satisfying to see how the empty house filled with life again, but this time under my own conditions. Linda and Robert worked with me arranging everything. Robert turned out to be very skilled at assembling furniture, and Linda had a good eye for organizing spaces in a functional way. Mrs. Emily, said Linda while we arranged the kitchen, we do not know how to thank you. Do not thank me. This suits us all. When are you going to move in? I do not know yet. I need time to think. The truth was that I liked the independence of the hotel. For the first time in a long time, I had a space that was completely mine, where no one could enter without my permission, where I could make decisions without consulting anyone. Mrs. Emily, said Robert, my son Michael called last night from the States. Oh, yes? And what did he say? He is very ashamed of what Sarah did. He says he never asked her to get us a house and that he did not know she had done all this without consulting you. Michael is returning soon? No, ma'am. He got a good job there and plans to stay at least 2 more years. But he says, when he returns, He is going to be responsible for us. And what do you want to do?" Linda and Robert looked at each other. "Mrs. Emily," said Linda, "if you allow us to stay here those 2 years, we would save enough to put down a deposit on a small apartment when Michael returns. That is a long time. We know, if it seems too much, we can look for something else." I looked at both of them. In 2 days, they had demonstrated more consideration and respect for me than my own daughter in years. "Let's see how the first month goes," I told them, "if we are all comfortable. We can talk about extending the arrangement." Their faces lit up. Really? Really? That afternoon, while Linda cooked and Robert worked in the garden, I sat on the front porch reading a book I had bought at the hotel. It was a novel about a woman who traveled alone through Europe after being widowed. It had been years since I read for pleasure. David appeared in his garden and greeted me from the fence. "Mrs. Emily, how are things going?" "Very well, David. Have you met Linda and Robert?" "Yes, they are very pleasant. Robert offered me help with pruning my trees. They are good people." David approached the fence that separated our gardens. "And how do you feel about your decision?" "I feel good. I feel as if I had recovered control of my life." "And your daughter?" "Sarah still does not understand what she did wrong, but that is her problem, not mine." David nodded. "Mrs. Emily, can I say something?" "Of course. Since I met you, which has only been 2 days, I have seen you change. Yesterday you looked like a defeated woman. Today you look like a woman who knows what she wants." His words reached my heart. "Thank you, David. Are you going to eat? I still need my space." Seems very wise. That night, while I was dining in the hotel restaurant, the young receptionist who had attended me the first day approached me. "Mrs. Emily, how is your new life?" "Going very well, thanks. Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "How did you know it was the moment to change?" The question surprised me. "Why do you ask me that?" "It is just that I am 25 years old and I feel like everyone makes decisions for me. My boyfriend, my parents, my boss. Sometimes I feel I have no voice in my own life." I recognized myself in her words. "You know what made me change?" "What?" "Realizing that if I did not defend my right to decide about my life, no one else was going to do it." "But weren't you scared?" "Terrified. But I was more scared to keep living as if my opinion did not matter." The girl smiled. "You are very brave." "I am not brave. I am just tired of being invisible in my own life." That night, I slept better than in a long time. For the first time in years, I felt in control of my destiny, but I knew the hardest part was still to come. The next morning, the phone woke me up. It was a number I did not recognize. "Mrs. Emily Johnson?" "Yes." "Who is speaking?" "It is Michael, Sarah's husband. I am calling from the United States." My heart sped up. Michael had always been respectful to me, but we hadn't spoken for months. "Hello, Michael. How are you?" "Mrs. Emily, first I want to give you a huge apology for what happened. My parents told me everything and I am very ashamed." "Michael, you do not have to apologize for something you did not do." "Yes, I do, because Sarah is my wife and acted in the name of my family without my permission." "Did you speak with her?" "Last night we had a very long conversation." "Very long and very difficult." "Yes." "Mrs. Emily, I did not know Sarah had lied to my parents. I never asked her to get them a house, much less to force you to receive them. What did she say when you confronted her?" Michael sighed deeply. At first, she tried to justify herself, saying she just wanted to help everyone. But when I asked her why she hadn't consulted you first, she got defensive. And then I asked her why she had lied to my parents, telling them you wanted company. There she got furious and told me I did not understand because I was not here. "Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Sarah has a habit of making decisions for others without consulting them." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mrs. Emily, I am ashamed to admit it, but yes, it is part of the reason why I decided to come work here." What do you mean? Sarah, well, she has always had the tendency to want to control everything. At first, I thought it was because she worried a lot about the family. But later, I realized she doesn't like others making decisions, not even about their own lives. His words hurt me, but they did not surprise me. And how is she with you? With my parents, she has always been very bossy. She tells them what doctors they should see, what medicines they should take, what TV programs are good for them. At first, my parents allowed it because they thought it was love. And now my parents told me they are tired of her making decisions for them. That is why, when you proposed the arrangement consulting them and respecting their opinion, they felt very relieved. Michael, do you think Sarah can change? I do not know, Mrs. Emily. Last night, I told her she had to apologize to you sincerely. I explained that what she had done was very wrong. And what did she respond? That you were exaggerating and that in the end, everything had turned out well because my parents had a place to live. Meaning, she still does not understand. No, Mrs. Emily, she does not understand. I stood processing the information. It was painful to hear that the problem with Sarah was deeper than I had thought. Michael, what do you plan to do? Mrs. Emily, I return in 1.5 years. When I return, my parents are going to come live with me. But meanwhile, if you are willing to continue helping them, I will send you money every month to cover expenses. It is not necessary, Michael. The arrangement I have with them is working well. I insist, Mrs. Emily, it is the least I can do after all this trouble. And what does Sarah think of that? Sarah is going to have to learn to live with the consequences of her decisions after hanging up with Michael. I stayed thinking for a long time. It was clear Sarah had a serious problem with control and respect towards others. But it was also clear that I had been part of the problem by allowing that behavior for years. I decided to go walk to the square to clear my mind. David was on his usual bench feeding pigeons. Good morning, Mrs. Emily. How did you wake up? With many things on my mind, David. Want to tell me? I told him about the conversation with Michael. David listened attentively while the pigeons pecked around our feet. Do you know what hurts me the most, David? What? Realizing that I allowed Sarah to develop this behavior. Every time she made decisions for me and I said nothing. I was teaching her it was okay to do so. Mrs. Emily, you cannot blame yourself for wanting to avoid conflict with your daughter. But by avoiding small conflicts, I allowed a much bigger conflict to be created. That is true. But it is also true that it is never too late to change the dynamic. But what happens if Sarah does not want to change? David looked at me with those wise eyes that were already familiar to me. Then you will have to decide what kind of relationship you want to have with someone who does not respect you. His words were hard but necessary. David, do you think I am a bad mother for setting boundaries so late? Mrs. Emily, a bad mother is one who never sets boundaries. A good mother is one who sets them when she realizes they are necessary, regardless of the age of her children. That afternoon, I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. Go shopping for myself, not practical or necessary clothes, but something I liked simply because I liked it. I entered a clothing store I had always looked at from outside but never visited. A young saleswoman approached. Can I help you with anything? I'm looking for something different, something that makes me feel good about myself. What colors do you like? I stood thinking. It had been so long that I only bought clothes in black, gray or brown because it was practical. I like green and gold. Perfect. I have some things I think you are going to love. I tried on several dresses and blouses. It was strange seeing myself in the mirror with vibrant colors after so many years of dull tones. That emerald green dress looks beautiful on you, said the saleswoman. Do you have a special event? No, I just want to feel good. That is the best reason to buy new clothes. I bought the emerald green dress, a gold blouse and an orange bead necklace I would have never considered before. It was the first time in years I spent money on something completely unnecessary, but that made me happy. When I returned to the hotel, the receptionist looked at me with admiration. "Mrs. Emily? You look beautiful with that color." "Thank you, honey. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How do you manage to be so brave?" "Yesterday, my boyfriend told me I couldn't go out with my friends because he had other plans for us, and I simply accepted. What would you have wanted to do? Tell him he can make his plans." "But that I already had mine." "And why didn't you tell him?" "Why?" "Because I am scared he will get mad. And does it seem normal to you to be afraid of your own partner?" The girl stood thinking. "No, I guess not." "Honey, no one who truly loves you should make you afraid to express your opinion. Do you think I should talk to him? I think you should ask yourself what kind of relationship you want to have. One where your voice matters, or one where you have to ask permission to live your own life." That night, while I was dining in my room, the phone rang. It was Sarah. "Mom." Michael called me. "And?" "He says I have to apologize to you." "And what do you think?" "I think everyone is exaggerating all this a lot." "Sarah, do you really believe you did nothing wrong?" "Look, Mom, maybe I could have handled it better, but my intentions were good. Intentions do not justify methods." "Sarah, what do you want me to do? That I kneel and ask for forgiveness for trying to help? I want you to understand that what you did was wrong, that you respect that I am an adult person. And yes, I want a sincere apology. This is ridiculous. For you, maybe. For me, it is the difference between having a relationship with you or not. You are threatening me. I am not threatening you. I am explaining the consequences of your actions. You know what, Mom? Do what you want. After all, you have always been very dramatic. Sarah, when you are ready to speak with me like an adult who respects another adult, call me. Until then. We are not going to talk. Seriously. Seriously. You cannot be serious. Very serious. And I hung up. It was the first time in my life I hung up the phone on my daughter. It was the first time I set a clear and definitive boundary. My hands were shaking, but inside I felt a strange calm. I had taken control of my life. Now Sarah would have to decide if she wanted to be part of it under my conditions, or if she preferred to keep believing she could trample on me without consequences. For the first time in years, the decision was not mine. It was hers. The following days were strange, but liberating, for the first time in a long time. My phone did not ring constantly with Sarah asking for something or complaining about something. It was as if I had recovered a silence I didn't know I had lost. I established a routine I liked. I got up early, had breakfast in the hotel restaurant, went to walk in the square with David and his pigeons, and then visited Linda and Robert to see how things were going at the house. Linda had turned out to be an excellent cook. When I arrived, she always had fresh coffee and some homemade dessert waiting for me. Mrs. Emily. She told me one day while we drank coffee in the kitchen, "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Linda. Do you not miss living in your house?" I stood thinking. It was a question I had asked myself several times. I miss the idea of the house, but I do not miss the anxiety of feeling I had no control over my own space. Do you think one day you will want to return? Maybe. When I feel it is really my home and not just a house where others make decisions for me. Robert entered from the garden with hands full of dirt. "Mrs. Emily, the roses we planted last week are sprouting very well." It was true. Robert had transformed the garden into something beautiful. He had planted vibrant colored flowers, fixed the irrigation system, and created small paths between the bushes. "It looks precious, Robert. Do you want us to plant something special somewhere? What do you suggest?" "There's a corner by the living room window that gets sun all morning. It would be perfect for an aromatic herb garden." I loved the idea. While Robert explained his plans for the garden, I realized this was what I had imagined when I bought the house. Quiet conversations about simple but important things. Plans made together, with mutual respect. "Linda, Robert," I told them suddenly, Can I ask you something? Sure, ma'am. Are you happy with this arrangement? They looked at each other and smiled. Mrs. Emily, said Linda, it has been years since we felt so calm. Why? Because you treat us like people, explained Robert. You ask our opinion, respect our decisions, make us feel useful without making us feel like a burden. It is exactly how I like to be treated. I answered them. That afternoon, when I was returning to the hotel, I met David in the square. Mrs. Emily, do you have a minute? Of course, David. What is it? I wanted to tell you something that happened today. We sat on our usual bench. This morning, a young woman came to my house asking for you. She said she was your daughter. My heart sped up. Sarah went to look for you? Yes. She asked me if I knew where you were living. And what did you tell her? I told her it was not my business to give information about you without your permission. How did she react? She got very upset. She told me you were her mother and she had a right to know where you were. And I told her the only right she had was the one you wanted to give her. I was surprised by David's loyalty. We barely knew each other for 2 weeks, but he was protecting me as if we were lifelong friends. What else happened? Then she went to the house and knocked on the door. Linda opened it. Linda told her where I am? No. Linda told her that you had been very clear. If Sarah wanted to talk to you, she had to call you first. And how did Sarah react? She got furious. She shouted at Linda that it was her house too, and she had a right to enter. But she did not enter. No. Robert came out and explained calmly that you were the owner of the house, and they were going to respect your instructions. And then Sarah shouted at them that everyone was conspiring against her and left very angry. I stood processing the information. It was painful knowing my daughter had gone looking for me, but it was also comforting knowing the people I had chosen to surround me were respecting my boundaries. David, do you think I did wrong not talking to her? Mrs. Emily, you had told her clearly what your conditions were to talk. Yes. I told her she had to apologize sincerely and recognize what she did was wrong. And had she fulfilled those conditions? No. Then you did nothing wrong. You established clear boundaries and you are maintaining them. That night, I struggled to sleep. A part of me wanted to call Sarah and fix things, but the more rational part knew that giving in now would be returning to the same pattern as always. The next day, I decided to do something I had been postponing for weeks. Look for new activities for my free time. I found a community center that offered dance classes for seniors. I had never danced in my life, but something attracted me to the idea. You have never danced? Asked the instructor, a cheerful woman of about 50. Never. But I always wanted to learn. Perfect. Here there is no pressure, only fun. The class was small, only 8 people, all over 60. There were 3 men and 5 women, all with stories similar to mine. People who had dedicated decades to caring for others and now wanted to do something for themselves. I am Helen, introduced a woman with silver hair and a fuchsia dress. I started coming after my husband died. At first I came because I didn't know what to do with so much free time, but now I come because I love it. I am Robert, said a thin man with a white shirt. My children told me to stay home watching television, but I wanted something more active. And what did they say when you told them you were coming to dance classes? I asked him. At first they made fun. Later, when they saw how happy I was, they stopped giving opinions. The class was fun, although clumsy. My feet did not coordinate well with the music, but I laughed more than I had laughed in months. How did it feel? The instructor asked me at the end, as if I had woken up a part of me that was asleep. That is exactly the idea. When I left the community center, I felt different, lighter, younger, more alive. I decided to walk downtown instead of taking the bus. There were shops I had never noticed, cafes with live music, a small bookstore with a travel book section. I entered the bookstore and got lost among the shelves. There were books about countries I had never considered visiting, guides for women traveling alone, stories of people who had changed their lives after 60. "Can I help you?" asked the bookseller, an older man with glasses and a kind smile. "I am looking." "I do not know exactly what I am looking for. Those are the best customers. What kind of things do you like?" "Stories of people who started over when they thought it was too late. I have exactly what you need." He took me to a special section and showed me several books. One caught my attention immediately. "It is never too late to be who you want to be. This is very popular among our customers over 60, he told me. I bought the book and sat in a nearby cafe to read it. The first chapter spoke about how many people spend decades living the life others expect of them, until one day they realize they have never asked themselves what they really want. It was as if the book had been written for me. My phone rang. It was Linda, Mrs. Emily. "Excuse me for bothering you. You are not bothering me." "Linda, what happened?" Sarah came again. Yes, this time she came with a man who claims to be a lawyer. My blood ran cold. "A lawyer? For what?" "He says he wants to review the house papers because she has a legal right to live here." "Where are they now?" "They left when Robert told them they could not enter without a court order." Robert knew that. His son Michael had explained on the phone what to say if something like this happened. Michael knew this could happen. "Yes, ma'am." Apparently, Sarah told him she was going to seek legal help to resolve the problem. I hung up and immediately called Michael. "Mrs. Emily, I imagine why you are calling me." "Michael, what is happening?" "Sarah hired a lawyer to review if she can force you to let her live in the house. Can she do that?" "No, Mrs. Emily. The house is completely in your name. You can decide who lives there and who doesn't." "Then why is she trying?" "Because she is desperate and because she really believes she has a right to make decisions about your life." "Michael, what do you plan to do?" "I already did something. I told Sarah that if she continues with this, when I return, I am not going to be financially responsible for her. Really, very seriously. Mrs. Emily, what Sarah is doing is wrong, and it is time someone told her clearly." When I hung up, my hands were shaking. It was incredible how far Sarah was willing to go to get her way. But I also realized something important. I no longer felt alone facing this. Linda, Robert, David, Michael, even the hotel receptionist, everyone was supporting me. For the first time in years, I had a support network formed by people who respected me. It was time to show Sarah she was no longer dealing with the mother who let herself be trampled on. It was time for the final confrontation. The next day, I decided it was time to end this situation once and for all. I could not keep living with the constant threat of Sarah appearing with lawyers or inventing new ways to pressure me. I called Linda in the morning. "Linda, I want you to organize something for this afternoon. What do you need, Mrs. Emily? I want you to call Sarah and tell her I am willing to talk to her, but under my conditions." "What conditions?" "The meeting will be at the house at 5 in the afternoon. You, Robert, David as a witness. And I will be present. No lawyers, no shouting, no threats." "Are you sure, Mrs. Emily?" "Completely sure. And if she does not accept the conditions, then there is no meeting." "But Linda, I need you to make it very clear that this is her last opportunity to talk to me. If she rejects this meeting, or if she comes with lawyers, or if she disrespects anyone present, there will not be a next time." "Understood, Mrs. Emily." An hour later, Linda called me back. "Mrs. Emily, I spoke with Sarah." "And?" "At first she got very upset. She said, 'Why did other people have to be present? What did you tell her?' I told her those were your conditions, to take them or leave them. And in the end, what did she decide? She is going to come. But she said this was ridiculous and that you were being very dramatic." "Linda, are you and Robert comfortable being present?" "Yes, Mrs. Emily, we want to support you." I spent the rest of the day mentally preparing for the confrontation. I put on my new emerald green dress, the one that made me feel strong and sure of myself. At 4:30, I arrived at the house. Linda had prepared coffee and arranged the chairs in the living room so we could all sit comfortably. Robert had cut some flowers from the garden and put them in a vase in the center of the table. David arrived punctually at 5 to 5. Mrs. Emily, are you ready for this? As ready as one can be. At 5 o'clock exactly, Sarah arrived. I saw her arrive from the window. She came alone, dressed in a formal black suit, as if it were a business meeting. Her expression was one of annoyance and determination. Linda opened the door. Hello, Sarah. Pass, please. Sarah entered and looked around the living room. It was the first time she saw the furnished house since the day she took everything away. I see you bought new furniture, she told me without greeting me. Hello, Sarah. Yes, I bought what was necessary. She sat in the chair facing me. Linda and Robert sat on one side, David on the other. Why do all these people have to be present? Asked Sarah, annoyed. Because they are witnesses to this conversation, and because they are the people who have supported me when you decided to disrespect me. Mom, this is ridiculous, Sarah. I established the rules of this meeting very clearly. If you are not willing to respect them, you can leave right now. She settled in the chair with a gesture of annoyance. Okay, what do you want me to do? I want you to explain why you think you had the right to make decisions about my house without consulting me. Mom, we already talked about this. I just wanted to help Linda and Robert, and I thought you would want to help them too. Sarah, that is not an explanation. That is a justification. I ask you why you did not consult me before deciding. Why? Because I knew you were going to put obstacles. What kind of obstacles? Was I going to say I didn't have space? Or that I didn't know Linda and Robert well? Or that I wanted to be alone? And those wouldn't have been valid reasons. But Mom, you have a 3-bedroom house. You have plenty of space. Sarah, do you understand that the size of my house does not give you the right to decide who lives in it? But it is just that. It is just that you have always been very close to meeting new people. David leaned forward. Excuse me for interrupting, but did you ask your mom if she wanted to meet new people? Sarah looked at him annoyed. You have no reason to meddle in this. Sarah, I said firmly, David is here because I invited him. You are going to treat him with respect or this conversation ends. Okay. Okay, Linda spoke for the first time. Sarah, can I ask you something? What? Why did you tell us that your mom wanted us to come live with her? Sarah turned red. Why? Because I knew you weren't going to accept if you thought it was charity. But it was charity, said Robert, and there is nothing wrong with that if it is offered with respect. Sarah, I continued, do you understand that lying to Linda and Robert was also wrong? I didn't lie to them. I only adapted the truth so they would feel better. That is called lying, Sarah. Oh, Mom, do not be so dramatic. Sarah, that is exactly the attitude that bothers me. Every time I point out something you did wrong, you tell me I am dramatic or exaggerated. But it is that you are exaggerating. Does it seem exaggerated to you that I want to have a voice and vote in my own house? No. But does it seem exaggerated to you that I want to be consulted before people are invited to live with me? No. But does it seem exaggerated to you that I want my feelings to be considered? No. But everything ended well. Linda and Robert have a place to live. You have company. Everyone wins. David spoke again. Excuse me, Sarah, but you believe the end justifies the means. What do you mean? That if the result is good, it doesn't matter how it is achieved. In this case, yes. And if your mom had decided to sell the house due to the frustration of all this, the result would still be good, but she didn't sell the house. But she could have done it, and it would have been your fault. Sarah remained quiet for a moment. Look, Mom, maybe I could have handled it differently, but my intentions were good. Sarah, do you know how many times you have told me that in the last few days? What? That maybe you could have handled it differently, that your intentions were good, but you have never said that what you did was wrong. Because I do not think it was that bad. Seriously, Seriously. I got up from my chair and walked to the window overlooking the garden. The roses Robert had planted were blooming beautifully. Sarah. Do you know what Michael told me when he spoke with me? What did he tell you? He told me you have a habit of making decisions for others without consulting them. That is true. Michael exaggerates. Exaggerates? Linda and Robert. Have you noticed that? Linda and Robert looked at each other uncomfortably. Answer my mom, said Sarah, annoyed. Sarah, said Linda softly, sometimes you do tell us what doctors we should see, what medicines we should take, what television programs are good for us, because I worry about you. But you never ask us if we want that help, added Robert. See, I told them. I am not the only one who feels this way. Sarah remained quiet for several minutes. I could see she was processing the information, but also that she was fighting against it. Sarah, I told her finally, I need you to understand something very important. What? I love you. You are my daughter, and you are always going to be my daughter. But I am not going to allow you to keep treating me as if my opinion did not matter. Mom, I need you to recognize that what you did was wrong, not handled poorly. Wrong. And I need you to apologize sincerely. And if I do that, then we can start to rebuild our relationship, but under new rules. What rules? That you respect me as an adult capable of making her own decisions, that you consult me before making plans that involve me, and that you understand that if you break those agreements, I am going to set boundaries again. Sarah stared at the floor for a long while. When she raised her head, she had tears in her eyes. Mom, it is very hard for me to admit I was wrong. I know, honey, but it is necessary. It is just that I have always thought I knew what was best for everyone. And now I realize that maybe I don't always know what is best for others. It was the first real sign of reflection I had seen in her. Mom, what I did was wrong. I shouldn't have decided for you. I shouldn't have lied to Linda and Robert, and I shouldn't have reacted so badly when you confronted me. And I am sorry. I truly am sorry. For the first time in weeks. Her apology sounded sincere. Thank you, Sarah. We can try to start over. We can try. But it is going to take time to rebuild trust. I understand. And do you understand that Linda and Robert are going to stay here until Michael returns? Yes, and that is fine. I like seeing they are comfortable. And do you understand that I am going to continue living in the hotel until I feel ready to return? Why? Because I need time for myself, to know myself better, to do things I have never done. Like what? Like dance classes. Sarah smiled for the first time all afternoon. You are taking dance classes. Yes, and it is very fun. I am glad, Mom. Sarah, do you know what I want most from you? What? That you be happy, but that you be happy without controlling the lives of others. I am going to try, Mom. That is all I ask. We stood up and gave each other a hug. It was not the end of our problems, but it was the beginning of a new way of relating. Linda served coffee, and we spent the rest of the afternoon talking like a family that respects each other. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. That night, while I was returning to the hotel, David walked with me to the bus stop. Mrs. Emily, how do you feel? I feel as if I had recovered my daughter, but also as if I had found myself. That is the best possible combination. David, thanks for all the support. Mrs. Emily, you taught me something very important. What? That it is never too late to defend oneself, and that the people who really love us are going to respect our boundaries. While the bus took me back to the hotel, I looked out the window at the city lights. I no longer felt like a lost and confused woman. I felt like a woman who had learned to value herself. Tomorrow would be another day to keep building the life I really wanted to live. A life where my voice mattered as much as anyone else's. A life where respect was not negotiable. A life that finally was truly mine.